The Matrix Resurrections, directed by Lana Wachowski, starring Keanu Reeves, and you know The Matrix. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. Everybody knows about The Matrix. This is the fourth installment in the franchise, and in my opinion, it is the worst of the four movies. It's a fine movie, but overall, it's the worst Matrix movie. And before I focus in on The Matrix Resurrections, I'm going to talk about The Matrix now quadrilogy as a whole. I think the first Matrix is a really good movie. I recently rewatched the entire trilogy like a couple days ago before The Matrix Resurrections came out because I hadn't seen any of the Matrix movies since I was a kid. Like I saw each one probably like once as they came out when I was little, and that's about it. So I was like, let me get a quick refresher. So I did, and I enjoyed watching the trilogy. Excuse me. I feel like each movie gets more convoluted as time goes on, um, but they're enjoyable. First one, pure cinema. I love it. Direction, action, effects, color grading. Obviously, writing is weird and cerebral and meta. That's great. I love it. Everyone loves the Matrix. Matrix One, Matrix Reloaded. It's okay. Story was a little bit, more convoluted than the first one. Action still holds up. It's got some dated CGI now, but that's fine. And then the third one, I didn't really like as much as the first two. I felt like it focused way too much on Zion and reality rather than like the interesting parts, which is the Matrix itself. And it added way too many characters to the series that just didn't have any depth, and I just didn't care about them regardless of like what kind of heroic moments they were given in the movie. I was just like, okay, you're a new character that just kind of showed up and I don't care. So, also, I'm of the firm belief that every Matrix movie gets worse the longer it goes on. So, the first Matrix movie, revolutionary in cinema. It's fantastic. The Matrix Reloaded, a little bit worse than the first one, but still pretty damn good, and I could watch it and have a great time. Revolutions has really convoluted story, and it focuses way too much on stuff that nobody cares about and has way too many characters that are unimportant and just don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like it could just that whole like plot lines could have just been cut from the movie and everything would have been fine. And now you get to Resurrections, which I feel like the foundation of this movie was we want to bring back the Matrix. And then somebody said, all right, so if we're going to bring back the Matrix, why don't we make it meta and nostalgic? Because people like nostalgia and the Matrix franchise is meta. So what if we do both? And here's the Matrix Resurrections. Like, this movie doesn't feel like it had any. I'm not gonna say it didn't have any heart and soul in it, but it it felt that way. It really felt that way because it just feels like an action movie. Like it didn't feel like a Matrix movie to me. It just felt like an action movie that happens to be the Matrix, which isn't what I should go for. What I wanted for and isn't what they should have gone for with this movie, as I was trying to say. So, without spoilers, I'll get into the spoilers later. This movie is very egregious when it comes to nostalgia, which is disgusting because there have been things that came out this year that have been either reboots or continuations or went off of nostalgia. Two things that pop to my mind right now are Spider-Man No Way Home and the Masters of the Universe series. Those two things continue off of the heels of their predecessors and bring back characters that would bring up a nostalgic response, but they tell a compelling story that makes them interesting and stand alone in their own right while still having those, oh man, I remember that from when I saw it when I was, they still have those nostalgic moments. This does not have that. They literally just rip lines, shots, action scenes, moments, and then they reuse footage from the original Matrix trilogy in the most egregious ways possible. Like, it's so bad. Now, you've probably seen this in the trailer for The Matrix, but the character who is Smith in The Matrix Resurrections literally said, there's literally shots where he'll say a line that Smith said, and then it cut to the scene from the original Matrix showing Smith saying the line, and then it'll cut back to the new actor in the Matrix Resurrections, and I'm just like, you're kidding, right? Like, you didn't actually just do that, right? You didn't literally just go, hey guys, you remember that line? Well, hey, listen, if you didn't remember it, here's the shot from the original movie that you like. Now we're going back to the beginning. You like that? Like, I can't. They did it so many times over the course of this movie. Like, this, I want to say 10, maybe 20% of this movie is filled with cuts to the original Matrix trilogy. And I'm just like, dude, like, I understand using old shots to remind people who haven't seen the movie in a very long time of this dramatic moment. That's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. But this just did it because it was like, hey, you remember this? Yeah? You remembered it? Because I remember you liked it. So, like, I redid it. And it's not as good. But, like, you see the parallel. Like, it's the set. You get it, right? Yeah? Yeah? You get it. Yeah. Like, it's just, it's so dumb. It's ridiculous. The story is, it's trying too hard to be meta. Like, the original Matrix movie was weird and cerebral and meta because it just happened to be that way because that's what the story was, that's how it told it. This, it's like someone sat down and went with the intention of telling a story that was supposed to be cerebral, that it was supposed to be meta, that it's supposed to make you think about stuff. And it's just like, dude, like, you didn't focus on like the plot. Like, this just kind of happens. Like, it's not that compelling, it's not that interesting. Like, there isn't anything groundbreaking here that's worthy of the franchise that you're resurrecting. You know, it just didn't land home. I'm like, okay, well, whatever, let me keep watching the movie, see what's happening. Because, like, even the beginning of this movie is just a worse rehash of the first Matrix movie. And it's just like, okay, like, it's dumber and not as interesting. Because here's the thing, this is the same thing that I've heard people talk about the Predator movie, is that when the first Predator came out, nobody knew what Predator was. So I've heard from my coworkers that I've spoken to who've seen the original Predator in theaters, no one knew what Predator was back then. So when they saw it in theaters, it took them off guard and they were shocked at what happened in the movie. And I feel like that's the same way with the first Matrix. No one knew the Matrix franchise when the first Matrix came out. So when the movie starts and it's about Thomas Anderson and you see Trinity beating up people and you're like, what's going on here? This movie is super weird. I don't understand what's going on. And then the reveal happens that, like, this is all a simulation and we're at a war with the machines. It's like, oh man, that's really crazy and cool. This movie, everyone knows the Matrix at this point. So it's just like, this isn't like they try and spin it in a new way that makes you interested, but it just didn't land for me. And I feel like it's not gonna land for a lot of people. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess it just happened. The action, I'll go to the action now because I feel like the story, there's not much else I can really say about it. It doesn't really do anything groundbreaking. It does have a really stupid moment at the end that I'll talk about when I move into spoilers, but so moving on to like the action and the direction and the cinematography. The action, okay, that's a little aggressive. It doesn't suck. I'm not gonna say that, um, but it's definitely worse than the other trilogies because the Matrix franchise has really good action. They're long takes. They're all, for the most part, all practical. The actors who played the characters are doing the stunts. They're fighting each other. You see it. It looks fantastic. The choreography is great. And then, even though the CG is dated, it still looked cool. There was amazing. The world, like whenever characters fought in the Matrix, it wasn't just like two people hitting each other. There was the sound design. There was the speed from the effects that they added. There was the world literally breaking and morphing because these characters are moving at such fast paces and hitting so hard that like it's all vibrating and shaking and folding in on itself because they're inside of a computer and everything, and it looks great. This doesn't have that. There aren't that many. There are barely any long takes in the movie. They rehash choreography from the original trilogy. There's a ton of cuts. Like it's just not as engaging or interesting, and it sucks because like I know Keanu Reeves can do action. If you've seen the original Matrix trilogy, or you've seen more recently John Wick, you know this man can do stunts. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name, but the actress who plays Bugs in the Matrix Resurrection, if you've seen, no, this is a rarity, but if you've seen the series Iron Fist on Netflix, you know she can fight. So she can do her own stunts. They had two actors in this movie who can do their own stunts that you don't get to see them do their stunts that well. Like you do get to see Bugs in the movie do some interesting stuff. She does get to do some stunts and everything, but you don't get to see her do as much interesting things as you would like to her to, given the past iconography of the combat in the Matrix franchise, and it's disappointing. The direction is okay. There were a few shots that I'm like, that looks really cool. Uh, that's about it. Like the direction and cinematography as a whole aren't as compelling as the original Matrix trilogy because I felt like the Matrix trilogy has a specific look, has a specific vibe to it. You know, like the green, like color grading over everything to make it look bleak and dark, and like everything's messed up, and the dirty, grungy look of Zion and everything like that. It looked cool and interesting and made you want to learn more about the world. This, everything looks clean and pristine, and it's just like, I get within the context of the Matrix universe, there's a reason for why everything looks so neat and clean now, but at the same time, it's visually less compelling than the previous iteration. Like the Matrix itself, it's been reloaded since everything that happened in the original trilogy, so it's a more functioning, better running Matrix than the previous iteration from the trilogy that came out prior. So now everything looks more pristine and colorful. I do like the attention to detail there. However, it still looks visually less compelling than the original version. And then in reality, the city that they're in the Matrix, and like the ships and everything, they have updated graphics because of, recent technology. However, it just doesn't look as cool. Like they had worse graphics back then because of the times, but I feel like the grungy look that everything had fit this dystopian sci-fi city. But now it's like, hey, things aren't as bad as they used to be, so everything's nicer now and it's neater, but then they still have like the same like clothes and everything that they wore back when everything was like dystopian, and it's like, okay, all right, I guess it is what it is. So overall, if I had to give the Matrix Resurrections a rating, I'd probably give it like a 5. Like it just wasn't as good as the other 3 Matrix movies. Like if I had to rank the Matrix movies like as Matrix films, not as like movies in general, it would be like Matrix, Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions, Resurrections. Like they literally just go in order. I feel like each Matrix movie just decreases in quality, but it is what it is. And with that, uh, oh, one last thing, I guess that I'll briefly touch on that I should have mentioned earlier when I was talking about the plot. I like Bugs. I think her character is interesting, and I wish they would have touched more on her and that she was more of a focal point of the story than Neo. I think that she would have been an interesting character to follow, especially with her story. That's it. Now that I've finished talking about the non-spoiler parts of The Matrix Resurrections, I'm going to go into the spoiler section. If you want to check out The Matrix Resurrections, it's on HBO Max right now, so it's easy and accessible for you to watch. And then you can come back and watch the spoiler section. But I am going to do spoilers now, so I'm going to talk about spoilers. I have warned you. Here I go. So the thing that annoyed me the most about The Matrix Resurrections is that the whole plot of the movie is that they free Neo, and Neo's like, I gotta save Trinity, which is fine. That makes sense. But also, they never they just, they don't explain why Trinity is like Neo. is that they kind of do a throwaway line that Smith says that like anybody can be the one Neo. It just happened to be you. And it's just like, okay, sure. But the whole crux of the movie is that they free Neo and then he has to free Trinity, and they're unsure if Trinity is going to be able to break, you know, free from this new iteration of the Matrix and become herself again. And then by the end of the movie, Trinity becomes a second the one. Like she's able to do the stuff that Neo can do now. Like she can fly, she can mess with the programming of the Matrix, and it's just like, how? Like I understand the Matrix does like weird dumb things that happen. Like in the original trilogy, Neo is still connected to the Matrix when he wakes up and he's able to like force choke robots in reality, which is stupid, and I didn't like it when I saw the Matrix Reloaded in Revolutions. So like this just added on to things that don't make sense that just happen now, and I already know that it's gonna bother a lot of people in stupid ways. Like I can already see now that online people are gonna be complaining that like this is gonna be like a female power fantasy and like that's why they made Trinity be able to. No, no, shut up. This is just a narrative issue. Like Trinity should not be able to do the things that Neo can because they explicitly say Neo is the one. That's why Neo can do the things that he wants to do. I know there are theories online that Smith is the one, but like even Smith is able to do the things that he can do, he says it's because of Neo. So like, why is Trinity able to do these things now? Like I understand she's in love with Neo, but it's not like Neo infected her code like he did with Smith. So like why can she fly now? Why can she mess with the fabric of reality of the Matrix? What happened? Like cuz in the first trilogy, Trinity gets the crap kicked out of her a lot. Whenever she has to fight an agent, it is a bare knuckle brawl because she can't do it. They exclaim that no one but Neo is able to survive fighting agents, so it's very difficult for people to survive when they come across them. Even Morpheus had problems fighting an agent in the original trilogy. So, what happened exactly? Why is why can she just do this now? It doesn't really make any sense. She could just do it, and it's like, yeah, accept it. I'm like, well, all right then. I guess. I mean, the movie's over now anyway, so I guess it just happened. Whatever, I guess. Cool. And now that I can speak freely with spoilers, the meta-ness of the Matrix, so how I talked about the first act of this movie, is just a worse retelling of the first Matrix, and that's because they explain what happened to Neo and Trinity, and basically, uh, this is something I did like that I think was cool, but also it, they tried too hard with it. Is that Neo is a game designer now in this current iteration of the Matrix, who canonically created the Matrix franchise, like the trilogies we know as movies. He created the Matrix franchise as video games. It's a way to keep Neo sedated so that whenever there are glitches and like he has dreams or memories from his past life pop up, it's construed as he's just remembering the game that he created so that he won't break free. And the same would go for Trinity. I think that was cool. That was a cool concept that was introduced into the movie. And they also added in the fact that Neo is suffering from mental illness. So whenever he starts freaking out or he's thinking about the Matrix, or his previous life, it's just, nah, he's going crazy. Like there's a point where he's talking to the reincarnation of Agent Smith, and he's remembering when Smith brought him into the interrogation room and he messed with the code and his mouth sealed up and he put the worm in his stomach, and then Smith's mouth seals up and Neo's like, he's in panic mode. He's like because he thinks he's having, a mental breakdown again. But really, those were just his memories trying to permeate through, because they're like, dude, wake up. This isn't real. What's happening right now isn't the truth. It's not reality. What you're seeing right now is what is actually happening. And I thought that was cool until they tried too hard and they joked a lot. They make way too many jokes in this movie. The original trilogy, there are jokes in it, sure, but they're very few and far between because the movie is very serious. It's a dystopian sci-fi movie that deals with like weird cerebralness of like reality and existence. This is like, hey, remember the Matrix and like, haha, this is funny? Yeah, like neat. Like people made fun of the fact that Keanu Reeves's line delivery of "I know kung fu" from the original movie, and they put it in this one, but it doesn't make any sense. Like he just says it in a random scene because like the first scene where he fights and remembers that he can do kung fu, he doesn't say it. He says it in a scene after that where he's fighting different people and he's already remembered that he knows kung fu. So like why would he say it afterwards? It doesn't make any sense. That would be like if I was hungry, I ate a sandwich, and then like 5 minutes later, I started eating a bag of chips, and then I was like, I'm not hungry. It's just like, no shit. You ate a sandwich 5 minutes ago. So like why didn't it register that you ate like, after you ate the sandwich? Why does it register now? You're eating chips. Like when he fought Morpheus, he doesn't go, I still know kung fu. No, he fights Morpheus, he remembers that he knows kung fu, and then he fights other people, and then he goes, I still know kung fu. And it's just like, yeah, you do. Do you not remember when you just used kung fu to kick the crap out of Morpheus like not too long ago? What okay. I guess that didn't constitute, you remembering it, so you bring it up now, fighting other people. Sure, cool. But like anyway, movie tries too hard to be meta. Uh because Neo's game designer, so they make jokes about the previous Matrix because like it's integrated into their world and they're just like, yeah, we gotta make the Matrix games. And it's like I remember the Matrix being like weird and cerebral, so we gotta do that again. And like what people liked about the Matrix was bullet time, so we gotta do more bullet time moments because bullet time's cool and bullet time, bullet time. I'm not kidding. He says bullet time so many times in that sequence. It's very annoying, and that's the biggest problem with this. It nostalgia baits way too hard. Like this is probably the most egregious movie I've seen with nostalgia baiting. Like I mentioned in my non-spoiler section, they just took scenes and edited them in between scenes that recreated old scenes, or they just literally took shots. Like there's a shot where Morpheus walks by and he's like shooting cross-armed at people. Same thing happens. Morpheus is walking down, shooting cross-armed at people. Morpheus in this, I hate him so goddamn much. Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus is a really cool and compelling character that is iconic in cinema. And they make a joke of him in this movie because essentially the Matrix recreated Morpheus. Like now Morpheus is not a human anymore. They created a computer digital version of Morpheus. And he's aware of the fact that he isn't the original Morpheus, and because of that he has a more comedic tone. He's basically Morpheus 2.0. So it's like, okay, I get it. You understand you're not the original, but you still have all of the memories, so you have a different outlook on things, which is why he acts the way he does. But it sucks. Like they tried to reinvent Morpheus in a comical tone, and it's terrible. Like he makes jokes out of like the iconic moments that Morpheus had in the previous trilogy. Like he talks about the first time that Morpheus meets Neo when he re-meets Neo in The Matrix Resurrections, and he's like, haha, yeah, remember back then I was like sitting in a red chair and it was all like darkness and lightning and philosophical speech, and he's just like, what a time it was back then, and now I'm here just meeting you in the bathroom. And I'm like, are you serious? And yes, this is another scene where they edit in the clips of the first time Neo met Morpheus as he's describing the scene. And I'm like, did you think this was funny? Like, did you think I was gonna laugh at the fact that you're just crapping over this? Like, if this movie wasn't made by a Wachowski, I would have definitely said that this was cinematic murder. That like whoever made this just didn't care about the Wachowskis, because it feels that way. Like, this doesn't feel like they brought this back because they wanted to. It feels like someone told them to bring it back. Like, if this wasn't made by someone from the Wachowski family, I really would think this was made by somebody who WB sat in a chair and said, hey, the Wachowskis don't want to make another Matrix, so you're going to do it. We're going to pay you to do it. So just make a Matrix movie, add a bunch of nostalgia, make it a meta plot, and then now we have the Matrix movie. Like, oh man, it's just so bad. And just, they do things that are worse than the original. So everyone knows that the agents, whenever they pop in, they like there's like body dysmorphia, and they like the people glitch out and they turn into agents. They're like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," and they turn into agents, and then they're coming after you, and it looked cool and it was iconic. In this one, they said, nah, the agents upgraded. So instead of like full on morphing, another person in the Matrix into an agent, their eyes just like glow Matrix code, and then they're an agent now. And I'm like, what? That's so dumb. Like, it takes away the whole menace of like, you never know who an agent is, because they have a scene in the first Matrix where Neo's walking down the street with Morpheus, and the whole point of the scene is that anyone can be an agent, and like even someone that's super distracting. Like, Neo saw a beautiful woman in a red dress. She walked by him. He glanced at her. He's like, "Wow, she's pretty." And then he turned around as Morpheus was talking, and Morpheus is like, "Look at the woman again." And Neo's like, "What?" And he turns around, and the woman shifted into an agent and was holding a gun to his head. That was a really cool and menacing moment. You're like, oh my god, these agents can just appear out of anywhere. And I see what they tried to do with the menacing thing, that the agents are now disguised 100% now, so you don't know who is an agent. But they don't really do much with that. And also, what happened to the agents in this movie? They're nerfed beyond belief. The agents are super weak. Like, whenever they take over a person, they got bodied. Like, there's a train fight in this movie, and all of the passengers on the train get recoded as agents. And they just, like, the cast members just body them. Not Neo. Neo is out of commission in this fight. The regular Matrix people body a train car. A train car. You know how big a train car is, how many people can fit in a train car. They body a train car full of agents like it's nothing, and then just peace out. And I'm like, what? You're kidding me. They are built up as this, like, two agents is enough to take on the entire crew. Because in the Matrix Reloaded, there's an extended sequence where they're trying to deal with escaping agents. It's just like two agents that are chasing them through this entire sequence. Morpheus and Trinity are having so much trouble just shaking these two agents, because like no matter how many times they like blew up the car they were chasing them in, switched vehicles, jumped turnstiles, it didn't matter what they did, the agent just kept taking over new people and continuing their hunt because they were relentless. And it was just two of them. This is a train car full of people that are supposed to be them, and you're telling me that two people just bodied all of them. Morpheus 2.0 and Bugs are stronger than Trinity and Morpheus. They're just that much more skilled that they can body agents like that. Get out of my face with that. That's ridiculous. Like, it's just, the menace and the grit from the original Matrix trilogy is just gone now. And I just don't like it. I really don't. Like, I'm happy that the Resurrections took the time to stay more in the Matrix, because that's the more interesting part. But the movie as a whole just didn't work. Like, it didn't need to come back, because something that reboots and sequels have to do is they have to justify their existence, and this did not do that. This did not need to be made. I didn't need to see a new Matrix movie. It's okay. Like, could I rewatch it and be like, yeah, sure. Like, I could turn it on in the background on my phone or something. But like, if you were to put on like the Matrix One or the Matrix Reloaded, I would probably sit down and be like, all right, yo, hold on a second, let me check this out. Yeah, because this is a good movie. I gotta watch that. But if you put on Resurrections, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, 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 that's cool. Oh hey, yeah, that was a terrible joke. Oh, okay, movie's over. Yeah, yeah, like that's it. Ooh, and I guess I should before I end this, I'll talk about Morpheus was probably the one that bothered me the most, but Smith I think is the worst in this. Like he's not Smith. I don't care how many times they tell me his name is Smith. This guy is not Smith. For starters, they did something stupid. Is that Smith is most iconic for saying Mr. Anderson. It's threatening the way he does it, and it's iconic. This version of Smith is like a chill millennial who just calls Neo Tom instead of Mr. Anderson, and like he helps Neo break free from the Matrix in this. Like all of his threat and menace that he had in the original trilogy is gone. He's just this like chill millennial who like helps out Neo, and he's like, Neo, I don't want to go back to being imprisoned in the Matrix now that I know what it's like to be free, man. So like, come on, Tom, like let's not do this. And then they get into a fight, and he's like, they try to give him moments where he acts like Smith, where he says like thought provoking things, but then it's just like, okay, sure, yeah, whatever, dude, you're not the real Smith. Like, get out of my face. He just doesn't work. I feel bad for the actor who was like forced to like be in this role because like he's just gonna be compared to Smith, like the original actor, and he's just not gonna hold up. And I feel like that's why they probably made the changes they did so people wouldn't try to compare him too much. But you gave him the name, you insinuated that he has the same backstory with Neo. People are going to compare them, so it's too late. Like, I'm sorry, dude, if you receive any like hate for this online, like people attack you personally, because I don't think that's fair. You were just put in a bad position, and I'm really sorry that you were put in this stake. But it is what it is. So with that, that'll be the end of me talking about the Matrix Resurrections. It is what it is. I hope they don't try and milk this for more, because I can't see them doing any better than this. And like I said, it's a track record. Each Matrix movie gets worse than the last. So this one is the worst one in the franchise, and it's like really pandering. I can't imagine what a fifth Matrix would be like, and I am scared to see what that would be. So I really hope they don't do that. But we'll see what the future holds. So remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below about what you thought about the Matrix Resurrections. Tell me, what's your favorite Matrix movie? How you think of the Matrix franchise as a whole. And yeah, remember, you're innocent until proven villainous, and I will catch you in the next review.